Hi guys. With this video I continued my extensive information series on YouTube and on my homepage, apertureonepointfour.com, about the Hasselblad V-System, which will be expanded in the coming weeks. Thank you for joining me again. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so as soon as possible. Just activate the bell and you won't miss any of my new videos. By doing so, you are supporting this channel and my work for you. Thank you for that. As far as I know, Hasselblad offered 3 different bellows for the V-System. One of them was the oldest model shown here, which did not offer automatic cocking of the leaf shutter when the camera was cocked. The use of a double cable release is therefore a must with this model. The 2 newer bellows, like the model shown here, are only available second-hand. The second model offers an automatic cocking of the leaf shutter, and the third version, additionally, a more stable construction. The models 2 and 3 are more expensive than the oldest version shown here. For me, these advantages of the new bellows are not relevant, so that I decided for the first version. However, this version has a problem when connected to newer Hasselblad cameras, such as the 501C shown here. It is not mechanically possible to connect the bellows to the camera without a trick, as the camera's release button mechanically prevents a connection. Unfortunately, I cannot say which cameras can be connected directly without a trick. Or am I making a mistake? Feel free to write in the comments if you know more. This problem is quite solvable. I use a 10mm extension ring on the camera. This increases the distance to the shutter release button, and the bellows can be connected without any problems. If you use the Carl Zeiss Macro Planar 5.6 135mm with the bellows, you will lose the infinity distance setting. This is not a problem for me, as I only use the bellows for macro photography. If you want to use this lens for general photography, I recommend the much easier to handle version with the variable extension ring from Hasselblad with a setting up to infinity. The Panflex company also produced variable extension rings for Hasselblad. For connection to a tripod or for the use of quick release plates, the bellows offers the 2 common 1/4 inch and a 3/8 inch thread. When using extension rings and bellows, exposure compensation must be made if there is no exposure metering through the lens. If you are using viewfinders without a built-in light meter, such as a waist level finder with a fold-out viewfinder magnifier, a fixed waist level finder, or a prism viewfinder without light metering, you will have to correct your measured exposure value. Just imagine that the incident light has to travel a longer distance from the lens to the film plane. This results in a loss of light that must be compensated for. Hasselblad has engraved the exposure compensation factors to be used for various lenses and magnification scales on the guide rods of the bellows. Great job, Victor! Hasselblad also offers a universal close-up calculator. This tool can be used not only to determine exposure corrections when using bellows, extension rings, and close-up lenses, but also to read off the achievable image scale and depth of field. How is the first version of the bellows used in practice, and what should I bear in mind? I would now like to answer these questions. The bellows does not have a coupling to the lens. This means that a synchronized release of the auxiliary shutter and the leaf shutter can only be ensured with a double cable release. Hasselblad offered a double cable release for this purpose, which is color-coded. The cable marked in red is attached to the threaded connection of the bellows, while the other end of the double cable release is screwed to the release button of the camera. The extension ring is now fitted to the camera body as a necessary spacer between the bellows and the camera's shutter release button. The camera body and the extension ring must be cocked for this. For more detailed information, please watch my video, How to Attach Extension Rings and Bellows to the Hasselblad. The camera is then connected to the bellows with the extension ring mounted. Now that you have found your motif, composed the picture and focused on your motif, measured and corrected the exposure, you can take your picture. I always use the mirror lockup function for macro shots, as well as for long exposures or when using lenses from 350mm upwards in order to avoid shaking and thus blurred or slightly out of focus images due to the vibration. After the exposure has been taken, the camera and lens must be cocked. The camera is cocked as usual using the transport wheel. the lens shutter is cocked by turning the drive knob on the bellows. I was breathless at one point during use. After taking the picture, I cocked the camera and then turned the turning knob on the bellows to cock the lens. The expected click, the typical sound when cocking a Hasselblad lens, did not occur, and the turning knob could be turned further and further without the lens being cocked. I began to panic slightly. Stay calm. Take a look at the turning knob first. And indeed, this was the problem. A small screw holds the contact to the metal rod that turns and thus cocks the shutter. The screw had simply come loose. After I tightened it again, the shutter could be cocked as usual. Another source of error for unexposed shots can be a malfunction of the cable release, which has a negative effect on the shooting process. Hasselblad recommends checking the function of the cable release after removing the film magazine and readjusting it if necessary. As far as I can remember, I myself have only reset the cable release once. You can also find the instructions for this on my website, apertureonepointfour.com. This concludes this episode about the Hasselblad V-System. Thank you very much for your time and interest. I look forward to having you as my guests again in the next video. Until then, and stay healthy.